handed over the host to you, so you are all set.
Okay. Let's see, we want this one. Let me make sure I'm doing this correct.
There we go, perfect.
Okay. And I need to see. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. This is our fourth call. And Sarah, can you mute your mic?
Yes, let me go ahead and do that.
Okay. Thank you for being here today. And this is, like I said, this is our fourth and final session. So if you've been with us from the beginning, thank you very much. It's a learning process for me, and we are going to get right to it. And so if you've been here from the start, we went through the intro to adverse childhood experiences and how the History and Hope curriculum came to be. We reviewed the ACE study, and then the last two sessions, we've looked at how adverse childhood experiences affect us developmentally through prenatal through adolescence. And so today we are going to look at solutions in education, solutions in our programs, and you know, what is it? What are some things that may look like behaviors or barriers, and how do we as the adults in the room and in the environment, how do we maybe look at those through a different lens, as so that we can help children, because we are all children, but the individuals that we work with are, you know, even though they're teenagers, and most of them are teenagers and they want to be adults, there's still, many of them probably are still underage and need guidance and care. So that's what we're going to look at today. And so, you know, how do ACEs show up? How do adverse childhood experiences show up in community settings, and what can we do about that? We call this curriculum History and Hope because we want people to have hope that there's healing, that they can survive and thrive and do well. So, and the part of having hope is just the believing that I'm going to be okay. If we can have that belief that, you know, we've been through something, whether it was last week with the earthquake, which could have been a traumatic experience for some people, or you know, something that we've been experiencing ongoing in our childhood, whether it's a one-time thing or a continuing thing. If we can know we're going to be okay, that is a positive belief. And so we want to create safe places inside us that no matter what happens around us, we know that we are okay. And if we can practice these as adults, we can then show them to our clients that we're working with, and we can set examples to show our clients when we are all in a calm space, that we know how to calm our bodies, so that when we do experience something that's unsettling or that's scary, maybe we can connect with a part in our brain that says, okay, wait a minute, I need to stop and I need to slow down and think about what I need to do next, rather than reacting. And so that's in that practicing, that's what we want to do. We want to be the safe and welcoming environment for our clients, for our children that we serve in our communities. So before I move on, we are going to do a brain body healing movement activity. We're going to do one called centering. It's I think we did this one at the beginning of the session. Wow, it's been a couple of months. So if everybody could get in a seated position and really use the example shown in the picture. So you want to cross one of your ankles over the other and put your hands in a resting position in your lap or at your abdomen. And so in this centering activity, this is an important skill for everyone, because when we're starting to feel out of control or experiencing strong emotions, sometimes we just need to say, okay, I need to pause and gather myself before I overreact, or before I move forward and decide if this is the right plan of action. And breath work or abdominal breathing can really reconnect us to our center. And so we're going to practice this as we move forward in the rest of the presentation. So if you want to cross your ankles and put your hands kind of in a triangle shape or an oval shape down in your lap, and you're going to take deep breaths in. And what we're breathing into our center. We want to take slow, deep breaths and find that space and fill that breath all the way down into the deepest space you can go, and finding where your breath lands. And then we're going to breathe out anything that we really don't need to hold on to for the remainder of this hour, and anything we would just kind of really want to let go of will go out with our breath. So if you feel comfortable, close your eyes or lower your eyes, and we're going to do this to a count of 3. So 1 deep breath in. And out. 2 deep breaths in. And out. And then 1 more deep breath in, all the way down. And out. And you may have other activities or other practices that you do in your personal life that you've brought into your professional life that you share with your clients. This is just one of many that can be utilized. And so if you want to open your eyes, uncross your legs, kind of get into the position that you were in before or a different position, we are going to continue on. And so at we're going to be doing a lot of reflecting from the previous sessions. Not a lot. We're going to do some reflecting to the previous sessions. And in one of the first ones, we said, think of a child in your program that experiences the things on the screen, severe attendance problems, severe behavior concerns. But I also want us to think of is there a goal? What are the goals of your program? Some of them may be to look at children's school attendance, to look at frequently reported poor health outcomes. Some of them may be retention programs to keep children in school, to keep their programs to keep them out of the criminal justice system, or to help them if they have experienced a problem with the court system, to help them kind of remediate that and move forward. So really think about a goal of your program, and are your goals trauma informed? So that's one thing we're going to talk about today is, are our programs trauma informed? Are we as individuals trauma informed? And are our systems that we have put in place to help our clients, help our children, and help our communities, are they focused on the positive and focused on helping, moving forward and being responsive rather than reactive? And I believe I shared this at the first call. And to be trauma informed, it means to recognize how common trauma is, and that we are present, that there could be the presence of trauma around us that we don't even know about, that that we don't know who has, unless people share their story with us, we don't know who has experienced what, but we can assume that because we know that trauma is a common experience, that it does go on around us. And that we need to recognize how it affects all individuals, including ourselves. What are our triggers? What things really kind of pull forward those memories that we try to keep in the past? And how do we respond when those things come up, rather than reacting in an old way or in a way that we don't want to react to anymore? And then responding to that knowledge, putting the knowledge that we have, how to respond to situations, how to listen to people, how do we put those into practice for our clients, for their families, for ourselves? How are we gentle to ourselves and forgiving of ourselves and our fellow staff members? And so this is of all the things, if I could just have this slide up at all times and just work from this one, this is the one that I would work from. And so it's basically moving that little voice inside of us, or maybe it's a loud voice inside of us that we either direct to ourselves or direct outward to other people, that says, what's wrong with you? To, what has happened? What have you experienced and how can I help? So I would like us to do an activity with this. And this is difficult for me because I don't see you guys. And so I just have to believe that this is something that you are going to participate in. We've done this a couple of times in other trainings, and it's been pretty impactful. So I would hope that you would participate in this activity. So I want you to think about whether if you're listening to this presentation in a group, 2 or 3 or 4, however many people are in a room, I want you to turn, if you want to look at each other, you can, or you can look at an empty chair or a space on the ground. And I want you to imagine that the person sitting across from you, or this imaginary person sitting in this chair, is a person who's very angry, very upset. This person is yelling the top of their lungs. They're using curse words. They're punching walls. They're stomping their feet. They're slamming doors. They're just enraged. And I want you to, in your best grumpy voice, I want you to say, after you envision this and let those kind of feelings bubble up in you, I want you to look at that person and go, what's wrong with you? Please do that now. Or if you can imagine it through my voice. Okay. Now, if you've imagined that part of you, or imagine that you've seen that in another person asking somebody, what's wrong with you? And they look at you and they get angry, or they start crying, or they have a variety of reactions. So now I want us to take a deep breath, let go of that idea. Okay, so now I want you to envision that same teenager or that same client, very angry, punching things, stomping feet, just using a very big glare at you. And I want us to take a moment and think in our heads, what have you experienced? Envision that child in your head, and envision that client in your head. What has happened? What has happened to you? What experiences do you bring with you in our presence, in our program, in our community? And then I want you to say to that person that's either sitting with you or that's, that you're imagining, say to them, I see that you're slamming doors and using a really loud voice. How can I help you? And I don't think we really, if we we were to have a discussion about it, that the second one feels more in tune. It feels there's more of a connection there. It feels more respectful, and it helps build that relationship that we need to build when we're working with people, when we're working with families. But that takes practice. That takes stopping and connecting with that person that's next to you, that's across from you, that is coming, as maybe experiencing troubles one after the other. It takes a lot of work to do that as an adult, as the grown up in the room, to make that change, to make that shift. And we're not perfect. There's going to be sometimes we throw up our hands and we get frustrated and we get upset. But if we can practice that question of thinking in our heads, what have you experienced? What do you bring to this program in your experiences, and how can I help? I think it really does change that dynamic in the relationship. So if we're moving from ourselves, how we respond to situations, to how our agencies respond, how are our agencies set up? What are the policies that we have set in place? What does our front, what does our space look like? Is it a welcoming space? Do children feel, or I call them children because anybody younger than me, I'm going to call a child. I guess I can think of them as somebody to nurture, to take care of. And so are the policies that you have put in place in your in your programs, do they reflect these principles, these trauma-informed principles? What does it look like to have safety in your program? What does trustworthiness and transparency look like in your agency? Is confidentiality held pretty tightly, except in times of when there's going to be harm to self or others? Do the groups, do the clients know that when they reach out to try something, that it's going, there may be some ups and downs, and there's going to be somebody there to catch them if they fall. What does collaboration look like in your agency? When you look around at the way that your program is set up, what kind of empowerment and voice and choice do you have in your agency? Do your clients have that they have those opportunities? What does peer support look like in your agency? And then what about the awareness of the cultural, historical, and gender issues and inequity? So if you can take these principles and work as a group, maybe this is something you put on your agenda to talk about. Maybe it's part of your evaluation that you do with your clients, with your stakeholders, and say, are we meeting these principles? Because it will help not only individuals who have experienced trauma, who are coming to us with high ACE scores, but it will help all the way around. There's not, we want to, what does the culture of our program look like? And so the culture expresses the basic values of a program. Okay, so if we had a little bit more time, we would, and we could meet in groups, we would talk about what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? But these slides are available on our the Alaska Resilience website. So if this is something that speaks to you, please please go to the website and print off some of these documents and use them for planning purposes or for gatherings. Okay. And so these are principles that are absolutely vital for children who have experienced trauma and staff who have experienced trauma, but they're good for all people. And it's just good practice in general And I'm sure you're doing a lot of those things already. It's just maybe checking in and saying, which one do we want to really focus on? Do we say we're doing them? Does it reflect in our clients and in our community? And so thinking about that, we don't have to know which students or staff have experienced trauma. We just have to assume that it's around and plot and apply those principles, those trauma-informed practices. This article, which is once again linked in the Alaska Resilience Initiative website, is from the Atlantic, where it focuses on how schools that build resilience and are trauma-informed. Children feel like they belong and that they make meaning in their work. And where they're doing meaningful, challenging work, they feel like they belong and they have meaning. And so to turn that from a school perspective to one of your programs, what is the work that your clients come in to do, and is it meaningful? Does it serve? What's the purpose that it serves? And so thinking about how we we have children we have children that come into our program and life has been pretty easy to them, and they still need rules and they still need guidance to as they continue on their path into adulthood. And then we have people who, children and clients who have experienced traumatic events, whether once or multiple times, and that definitely impacts the way that they learn and the way that they experience the world around them. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. It's what does it look like how do traumatic experiences or adverse childhood experiences change the way that we perceive our environment, and what can we do as agencies to lessen that stress? A child may present in one way, whether it's it may look like inattentiveness and hypervigilance. They're always looking for the threat. They rely more on body language more than words. And so sometimes while they're scanning their environment, they miss that auditory input. So therefore they're missing content. So then they may look like you may give instructions on what's going to be going on in group that day, or what the plan is for the week. And clients are still kind of making sure they're in a safe place. So then they don't know what they're supposed to do. And then they can react in a variety of ways. Maybe they just follow along and make it look good. Maybe they act out because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, and they'd rather have negative attention instead of saying, I didn't hear you. And some kids will go, oh, I missed it. Can you tell me some more information? So what's important for us as the adults in the room and in our programs is to really be mindful of what does our affect look like? Is our voice a calm voice? Is it not too loud, not too soft? It's kind of like Goldilocks voice. What do our facial expressions say? Children who have experienced trauma, they are constantly scanning. They recognize the slightest change in a face that can become angry. They're always looking for their job is to keep themselves safe. So they're scanning us at all times. And our movements, calm movements? Are we making any sudden changes? Yeah. And are we aware of what's going on around in our environment? Also, when working with children that are maybe a little agitated, or that just you might not know what might set them off, is to make sure to be at or below their eye level, so that you appear non-threatening. And then also, what does your front office look like? Do you have one room? I mean, this picture is assuming that there are multiple rooms in an agency or in a in a program, but maybe you just have one space. And so what does that space look like? Is it non-threatening? Are the exits clearly marked? Are there places where clients can position themselves so that they know who's around them at all times? With the recent earthquake, I have found myself, when I go out with my children, noticing, okay, where is this place that I could get under a desk? I have to know where my kiddos are when I'm with them, so that if I need to grab them up and put them under a desk, I can do that. And so that's just the trauma response from one event that is still kind of going on here in Anchorage and throughout the area. And so if that was something that was chronically coming up, I'm chronically scanning my environment for safety, really take a look at it through that lens, and what does your space look like? One very important thing for us to do as providers, as educators, as whatever role that you play in your program, is to take care of ourselves. Staff wellness and self-care is the most important thing that we can do to ensure that our clients are taken care of. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't give our best selves back, or we run the risk of becoming ill ourselves, of running down, of burning out. And those are things that hurt us financially if we no longer have a job, and they also hurt our health outcomes. So making sure to get outside and do what, if you feel we can't always get outside when we want to, but really making it a practice to, what's important. Do you like to write in a journal? Do you like to sing? Do you like to go for long hikes and climb mountains, or just or stay on the tundra and go pick berries and forage for greens? Is hunting an important part of your self-care? Living from the land. So, some people just save up and they make sure they get out of Alaska for a brief period of time when it's really dark. So staff wellness and self-care is a vital part of helping our clients, because we're modeling it. We are showing them what we need to do to be our best selves. And another thing with children who experience trauma, and that they may be constantly scanning. They were building a place of trust. And so making sure that your forms are inclusive, knowing what their preferred name is. That's how we're building relationships. Use your correct pronoun. Make sure you're pronouncing their name correctly. I just found out yesterday that I was mispronouncing somebody's name that I know, and now I need to go and talk with her and say, I just learned I was not saying your name correctly. Can you tell me how, what does it sound like? And I know that our names are deeply meaningful for us. And so when we want people to take the time to be able to say them correctly. Another thing that children who have experienced trauma may have a problem with is sequential processing. People who have experienced trauma, they have a difficult time following long lists, following more than a two-step direction. The planning, anticipating, and hoping. Planning, they may not have ever had, things may have just happened to them. They may not have, had a schedule in their lives. Or if they're a child who's been in foster care, they haven't had really control of where they've lived. There's a variety of things that, and different parts of our brain are affected when we experience trauma, especially depending on the age we were when that happened. And so to there are some things that we can do to help our clients. This may be something that is part of your program, or it might be something to talk to parents about, talk to schools, kind of be that educator for the schools. Some things are, letting and setting, and for the client, write down on a visual schedule, what does their day look like? What does their week look like? If their goal is to get their homework all turned in, and raise their grades, what do they have going on in their lives that where they schedule in their homework? Are they on the basketball team? Are they playing? Are they in a play? Are they, those are the things that can interrupt our homework time. And so these are just two pictures. One is a visual schedule, and then the other one is, there's a variety, using, having kids, if they have a phone, helping them start a practice of setting a calendar, of finding an app on their phone that helps them track their homework assignments. There's technology, if children have access, can use it in a smart way, that could be a helpful practice. If your program is letting people know what's going on, if you have a variety of activities going on in your program, having a visual schedule so kids can know what days to expect to have certain events to go on. The other thing too is, if you're working in groups, is to make it a collaborative process, so that everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. And so if you're working on a small group project, and you can get 2 or 3 kids that have varying skills, they can use their strengths and work together. Something called elbow partners, if you're in a group, and you can say, turn to your elbow partner, which is the person sitting next to you, and have this discussion, and then share it out with us. Making sure we're using open-ended questions when we're talking to people, so that gives them, and then that wait time. So for that processing, there may be a couple of steps that are needed. So when we ask open-ended questions, it's important, especially if you're not used to working with people that might have a slower processing speed, or that are just, if you're a fast-moving person, it's important to make it a practice to stop and not push forward to the next question. Wait for a response, and self-reflection and all those things. What does that look like? So then we've talked about attention and inattentiveness. We've talked about sequential processing, some of those brain activities that can differ for people. One of the other things is behavior. That's the thing, that the way that people react to situations, are they reacting or are they responding? And I think sometimes our behaviors are the thing that we visually see, and I'm sorry, I'm losing my words a little bit here, but it's the behaviors that we see that can cause people to see somebody's behavior as problematic, when really it's serving a purpose for that child. So what is that child trying to, what is that child's need? That's where I'm trying to find, that's the words I'm trying to find. What is the child's need? Because we do what we know, and we either react or respond to situations because we have a need. And it's those basic needs that even with teenagers, even with young adults, even I don't know if anybody ever has heard the word hangry, but when I am hungry, I can get a little bit testy, or a lot frustrated, very frustrated. But I've started to recognize what that feels like in my body. And even if I can't get food right away, I will at least say it out loud, like, I'm approaching hangry. And so I'm telling myself that out loud, but I'm also kind of warning people around me that I'm going to try to keep myself calm, but I should pretty much stop what I'm doing and I should stop what I'm doing and fill myself with some food. And so children have these need fulfillment strategies. There's the physical needs. When their basic needs aren't getting fulfilled in a safe way at home or at school or out in the community, they do things to try to fulfill them. The need fulfillment strategies try to fulfill those needs. So if a child's basic needs for nurturing, for physical affection, for food are not being met or not being met in a safe way, they may show up in the way of sexualized behaviors, of having poor boundaries. You may see children hoarding or stealing food, and some of these things, kids can be in a safe and supportive environment now, but it may be things that they're pulling from their past that still just haven't been resolved. So that's where we need to have open communication about these behaviors and about about physical boundaries, about what are safe, what do safe relationships look like, whether it's between an adult and a child or safe relationships between peers, and the availability of the resources that we discussed on the last call, and how do you incorporate those into your program? And so, one solution is to provide healthy ways to meet basic needs. Does your program put on game nights where kids can have that connection to each other, that connection to adults, but in a safe, cooperative way? Can they get involved in sports and get that release of, you have your group dynamics, you have that release of physical activity, and then what are the sources of, what are ways that children get nourished? Does your program have a way of meeting the basic food needs of children in your community? Another need fulfilling strategy is the emotional relational needs. If you look at this child, if you age this child 12 years, then you have a 15-year-old who still might have this crying breakdown. They still have the need for affection. They also need to be taught boundaries and safety. And if those ideas about boundaries and safeties aren't addressed in the early years, they can get on, they're going to find them in other ways. They may be whiny, disrupt conversations, be what may appear to be overly dramatic. If they can't, and if you've ever heard the term of any attention is good attention, getting negative attention, and just those, how do you set boundaries with children in your clients that says, I want to hang out with you, I want to spend time with you, but these are the boundaries that we have around us. And so thinking about when we see these challenging behaviors, think to ourselves, I wonder what need this child is trying to fill. And you can have these conversations with yourself or have them with your staff, have them with parents and other adults that are involved with the child. What emotional or relational need is this child trying to fulfill when they do this behavior? What are they getting out of this behavior that is making a connection to them? And then we can kind of give us some wisdom to make a better response if we can maybe talk to each other, and we can start changing the negative behaviors into more acceptable behaviors. Because like we learned previously, the brain can change. It just takes a lot of practice once those pathways are laid down. We do need to practice. We may need some professional support to help those brain change. So these are just opportunities to build adult positive relationships. what is your program doing to meet kids' emotional and relational needs, so they don't have to resort to the behaviors that are getting them negative attention? Is there a time for is your program set up so that children can share their schoolwork? Are there opportunities for children to be in charge of a situation, just to hang out, just to relax and be involved in not kind of low pressure situations that are building positive relationships? We're talking about children who need to feel like they belong. They need to feel, when we talk about, sometimes we talk about infants, but we have to remember that, and you guys, you know this as working in your agencies and in your groups, that kids, teenagers, they still need to feel seen, they need to feel felt, and they need to feel welcome. So what does that look like in your program? Some schools, instead of saying, "How come you were late?" they say, "We're so glad you made it to school today. Have a great day." And so if your program has an attendance, if they're required to be there a certain amount of time, or it's okay to check in with them, but the first response could be, I'm glad you're here today. I'm so happy. It makes me happy when I see you walk through the door. And then maybe a little bit later find out what's been going on, if they've missed, if they've been gone a week, maybe they've had a doctor's appointment, maybe there's something going on at home and they had to take care of it. So helping children feel like they belong goes a long way to building those relationships. And then, what opportunities are there to increase the positive attention and decrease the negative attention? And as we go on in this presentation, we'll talk about sometimes kiddos that have experienced trauma, or people who have experienced trauma, they seem to thrive on that negative attention because the positive attention doesn't always feel safe to them. And so how is your community, how is your agency, how is your initiative and your program? Are you collaborating with the school? Are you collaborating with your wider community? Not that you would, we do have to be careful about confidentiality and maintaining that trustworthiness. But, how do we all work together as a community to build positive relationships for the teens who are our future in our community, for our children who are moving into the future of our community? How do we build those positive relationships? Is there an intentional practice, or is there an intentional mindset about how do we work together? Another one that sometimes we see need fulfillment is that attempt to control an environment and lying and manipulating. Is that children who really have not had any control, especially children who have been sexually abused, they've had their control taken away from them. So lying, however you want to say it, or manipulating can be a way of getting back control. It's also for children, some children may have been forced to lie, and so it's a learned behavior. They were told not to say anything, and they make up a different story, and that's kept them safe. And so it's something that they continue with. But that's a difficult behavior for us as community members. When we find out a child told us something that wasn't true, instead of saying, "Why'd you do that?" To stop and think, what need is this child or this person trying to fulfill? What experiences has this person experienced that they're bringing with them? And so one way is to help some solutions to that feeling of not having control or the need to manipulate is to really have the choice, letting children be in control? What are some ways that if you start your group with an icebreaker, or how can they be a leader in a game that you have put forward? Giving them jobs. There are some kids that even as teenagers, as older kids, making them in charge of, if you've got a game system, making them in charge of making sure that that's properly put away. Letting, if you're in a group meeting, having somebody be the note taker. There's a variety of ways that we can give our clients control as teenagers, and these are definitely, and also these are skills that they can use as they grow up. It might be an area where they really find that they excel at, in the areas of note taking, or making sure things are put away, being a team leader, and they may take real ownership in that area. That, we've talked about that the brain goes from in a typically develop, in a brain that's just has the opportunity to take information in, process it, think about it, think of different things to do, and then act on it. Children who have experienced ongoing trauma, they go from observing to reacting. It's that reactivity, it's that impulsivity, it's it becomes the permanent route, because there's big boulders in the way. There's things that need to be moved before children can, or people can start to slow their energy down and really take in a situation. So they have underdeveloped problem solving skills. They may have a tendency to act out without thinking. They have the inability to link cause and effect. So some children, if they're late to group, or if they're late to your program, Kyle, you can't come in today because you aren't on time. But some kids, they can't connect that, so it's less effective. And they may go, I don't care. And those systems, systems that rely on punishments and rewards don't work for kiddos and people who are reacting or are impulsive in situations. And so what we do need to, what we know and what we do need to do is that we need to practice pro-social behaviors. When our bodies are calm, how do we practice what we want to do when our brains are stressed? And so it's a lot about peer modeling and role playing. And even at older kids' age, there's the resources I shared last week or last time that are on the website that talk about what does healthy relationships look like between peers. Talk to them about our brain's plasticity, that if we practice doing things when our bodies are calm, we can retrain our brains, and that they are in control of their systems. They are in control of their bodies, but sometimes it's really hard to make those right choices. And then there's the aggression. And I apologize if some of these pictures are younger than children that you work with. We're still working on building our picture bank. So if you have any pictures of older children that you have permission to use, please send them to me. But children that have experienced trauma, there's aggression involved. They have difficulty with problem solving and empathy. They have the feeling of out of control. So students are attempt to regain control. Kids are looking for stress and danger in the environment, and they may perceive something to be a danger and use aggression to regain control. So even if it doesn't seem like it's a dangerous situation, it could be a triggering situation, and it's that fight or flight in the back of our brains. And so some children are going to fight because that's what they've learned that's how they've learned to protect themselves. And so what are some things that we can put in place to prevent children from escalating into aggression and respond, and how do we respond when they do escalate into aggression? One of the main things is to remember what part of the brain are they in. If, like I said, if it's a fight or flight situation, some kids are going to regress. They may withdraw from a situation. Some are going to fight. And so, do you have a place in your community? Do you have that are safe places for kids to go if they're experiencing a concern at home, if they're being bullied? Do they know where they can go in your community so that it's safe? Do you have a space in your program where kids can go and just relax and just zone out? That maybe there's no phones allowed in this area. Maybe there's Play-Doh, because kids still like to play with Play-Doh. It's a calming. There's some sensory activities in there. Maybe there's some some kids really like essential oils or some lotions. And it's a place where they can just be calm and relaxed. And when they're ready, they can come back and join the group. And it's just like, okay, I got control of myself. Another thing is belly breathing. When we find ourselves put in the back of our brain, when we're about to flip our lid, it's the belly breathing. And so this is a really cute video if you ever want to watch it. It's Elmo. But the other, this one is, it's belly breathing for four. It's called 4-4-4 breathing. So you breathe in for 4 breaths, you hold it for 4 breaths, and you let it out for 4 breaths. Some people have called it square breathing because when you let it out, you then wait another 4. And so it's kind of like a square. Some people have made the connection between square breathing and breathing in cigarettes. It's that when you smoke, you take a breath in, you hold it, you breathe out, and then you do that again. So what if you just practice this belly breathing? Maybe you're getting the same effect from the breathing aspect of smoking rather than the nicotine effect of the smoking. Something to consider, something to think about. This resource is at the end of the presentation. And so if you wanted to see more about it, I do have resources at the end of the presentation. Some programs may use specific social emotional learning instruction. There's second step that goes up through 8th grade, connected and respected. There are a variety of instructional, the fourth R, relationships. What are things that we are intentionally doing to help children calm their bodies, young adults calm themselves and really practice what they know. Children who have experienced trauma, or people, I keep saying children, but it's really people who have experienced trauma, or that they may start feeling panicky. There's a pressure point right under your nose that if you push it for adults, I think they say like 4 minutes. But if you're starting to feel anxious or panicked, that is a pressure point that you can use. And if you ever want one way to do it, and you don't want to look like you're sticking your finger up your nose, you can just lean on your elbow on the table and push your knuckle up under your nose. And it's one way of doing it. And I know we're running short on time, but I do want to reach these last couple of slides. That the other thing you may see people do when they're having an emotional response is that they shut down, or there's defiance or withdrawal. That's how they regain control of the situation. If we're asking kids to do too much, if it's too much to process, they may just, I'm not doing it, and they may just go take their bodies physically away, or they may just shut their face, just kind of shuts down. And that's, you know, we can't make people do things, and that's a way for people to gain control of their environment. So solutions to that withdrawal, to that aggression, to you know, what might be seen as defiance, is for us as the adults, or somebody who's, because this can happen across the age range. You know, this, if your instinct is to withdraw, is to freeze or flight when in danger, or when in perceived danger, those of us around need to consider, what part of the brain are people in? Are they in that reptile part of their brain that, as one of the neurobiologists, Dan Siegel, says, you don't want to poke a lizard. So you want to give people time to come back. That's why those safe spaces are important. That's why giving permission to leave a environment, and say, anybody, you know, if you need to take some time for yourself, here are safe places to do that. And then if you do need to make a correction, is really to make that connection with that person before you correct. So thinking those ideas in your head, what is this child, what need is this person trying to get, and then making the correction. And I think I might end on this one, and then get to the resources page. But this one was one of my favorite brain body healing movements. It's called Fingerholds. It's an Indonesian traditional practice. I don't know if anybody's ever practiced this. Some people may have seen this done before. And it's the idea that energy in these in different emotions, negative emotions, get blocked in our fingers. And you can also do this in front of people without it being noticeable. So it's something you can do under a table, or just sitting in a situation. But if you look at this slide, each finger has the idea that they represent some of these feelings. And so fear and panic. And the reason that I talk about this is because there's been 2 times recently that I've tried these. The first one was when I went to the dentist, and I have a fear of the dentist, and I gripped onto my finger and just took deep breaths, and I definitely saw a change in myself. And whether it was the deep breathing, or it was, you know, whatever the reason, it worked for me. And I would like, you know, if these can work for 1 or 2 people, I think it's beneficial. So this resource and guidance towards it is on the Alaska Resiliency Initiative website. And so, you know, our idea is that these 4 sessions were really to look at children who have experienced high adverse childhood experiences. From those experiences, they may incur social emotional deficits. So we really wanting to prevent the cycle where kids who've experienced trauma are punished for their trauma. It's about empowering those kids to be able to self-regulate, to be able to do well, and to know that they belong. So we want to be our client's advocate. We can't change the past, but we can be a voice for our clients, for our community. And so we also have to give permission to take care of ourselves so that we can give our full selves to our children. And you know, keep in mind that we are not alone. We are part of a relationship. We are part of a community. We are part of a society and policies that are kind of impinged upon us sometimes, or that we have to follow as an agency. And then also our history, our cultural history, our family history, our community's history impacts the way that that we develop as individuals and as families. And so this is our website. All resources are on this website. If you go to the resource tab, and once again, our mission is mobilizing Alaska to end child maltreatment, intergenerational and systemic trauma through healing and strategic advocacy. We are on Twitter and Facebook. We're on YouTube. So if you're interested in finding out more information, if you want to join a work group, please go to the website and find out more information. These are some of our contributors who helped put on this training, and these are individuals who have reviewed it for the scientificness of it and for the cultural appropriateness of it. And I want to thank you for your time, your patience with me, and the last slide here is some resources. So I'm wondering if I can get this to Tara and she can send it out to those that were on the call. And if we wanted to put together just a list of resources with also the Alaska Resiliency Initiative's email link to it. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sue. And thank you, everyone, for attending today. We will put together a list to share with you about all the resources that we wanted to share today, and we will get out that also. So thank you all for attending. We will be having a survey sent out to you as well. And you could always reach out to us here at Resource Basket, myself, or just directly at our email here at resourcebasket@ruralcap.com. So I want to thank everyone again, and we look forward to you joining us. And please don't forget to take the survey. We will be sending out that link sometime today. So Kuyana, and thank you all for joining today. And thank you, Sue, for a wonderful 4-part series presentation.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone, have a good weekend. Thank you.